Hi everyone, my name's Paul, and this episode is part of our Glimpses of Jesus series. We're on a journey through the Old Testament, stopping off at the main events, examining them, and thinking about how they point us to Jesus and salvation in him. What does an Aramean war hero, an Israeli river, a greedy servant, and a young girl taken as a prisoner of war have in common? They're all here in 2 Kings chapter 5. Near the centre of Whittlesey, there's a stretch of river known as the Bower. It's pleasant enough to walk along, particularly when the sun is rising in the distance. But I wouldn't swim in it. It's full of oversized crabs, and the water doesn't look inviting. In 2 Kings 5, Naaman's told to go into the Jordan River. He's not keen, but he does it. Why? Because God's promised to save him from a terrible disease. This chapter's a salvation story, and it echoes the big story of salvation we find in the Bible. Salvation from sin through Jesus Christ, God's Son. With that in mind, there are 3 lessons here, as well as a life-changing application. The first lesson: God has a heart for the nations. In verse 1, we're introduced to Naaman. Naaman, commander of the army for the king of Aram, was a man important to his master, and highly regarded because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. The man was a valiant warrior, but he had a skin disease. Naaman is a war hero, but he's also a needy man. He has a skin disease. In some translations, this is referred to as leprosy, although it's unclear whether Naaman had the same disease that we call leprosy today. Whatever it is, he has a problem, and he's helpless to do anything about it. He's also a Gentile man. What do I mean by that? In the Bible, a Gentile is anyone who does not belong to the nation of Israel. Anyone who isn't a physical descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Naaman's an outsider. He's a foreigner. That's important to understand as we work through this salvation story. You see, who is it that gets saved in 2 Kings 5? It's not an Israelite. It's a Gentile. And that's not an accident. God's intentional here. If we go all the way back to God's covenant with Abraham in Genesis 12, what does God say? I will bless those who bless you. I will curse anyone who treats you with contempt. And all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. God's intention in this promise is not just to bless Abraham, but all peoples on the earth through him. How does that happen? Through Jesus, the seed of Abraham. When Jesus came, he dealt with sin and opened a way to God, a way that's open to all who believe in him, from any nation on the planet. That truth is being echoed here with Naaman, a Gentile who's saved. It really doesn't matter who you are or where you've come from, Israelite or Aramean. The offer of the gospel, the good news of Jesus, is for you. So that's the first lesson. God has a heart for the nations. Here's the second. God has a plan to make us clean. Naaman hears that there's a prophet of God in Israel who can help him. So he asks the king of Aram and heads off with a royal letter in hand. Verse 6. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, and it read, "When this letter comes to you, note that I have sent you my servant Naaman, for you to cure him of his skin disease." The king of Israel takes one look and is thrown into a spin. Verse 7. When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and asked, "Am I God? Killing and giving life, that this man expects me to cure a man of his skin disease? Recognize that he is only picking a fight with me. Aram is the local superpower. You don't want to get in a fight with them. And this letter might give all the excuse that a power-hungry king needs to invade. Heal my servant? No? Then I take your lands." Up steps Elisha, verse 8. When Elisha the man of God heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent a message to the king. "Why have you torn your clothes? Have him come to me, and he will know there is a prophet in Israel." The king can't heal, but God can. You can imagine the tension dissipating as the pressure valve is lifted. The king sends Naaman on his way, relief written across his face. On the way, Naaman is met by a messenger. Then Elisha sent him a messenger who said, "Go, wash 7 times in the Jordan, and your skin will be restored, and you will be clean." Naaman's mad. He feels disrespected. Surely he deserves the personal touch with a bit of theatrics. But no, just instructions to wash in a smelly old river. Certainly no better than the ones he'd left at home. Naaman leaves in a huff, but his servants are a bit more switched on. They persuade him to at least do what Elisha said. Verse 14. So Naaman went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, according to the command of the man of God. Then his skin was restored and became like the skin of a small boy, and he was clean. Clean, completely clean. His skin's transformed. Imagine the scene. Naaman in the water, under and up, 6 times. Each time he looks at his skin, and it's unchanged. Then the 7th, he pushes up, he looks down, and he's clean. What a picture of salvation in Jesus. At the heart of the good news of the Bible is the promise of forgiveness. Look how it's described in Psalm 51, verse 7. "Purify me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow." When we're forgiven, we're washed clean, made whiter than snow. How? Not by washing in a river, but by coming to Jesus who died for our sin on the cross. Isaiah 53 and verse 5. "But he was pierced because of our rebellion, crushed because of our iniquities. Punishment for our peace was on him, and we are healed by his wounds." Our sin separates us from God and the full, rich and eternal life we can know in him. Our sin demands the price of justice, eternity under God's judgment. But forgiveness, the reality of the cross, changes all of that. It flips it on its head. Naaman's a Gentile, and God saves him and makes him clean. That's an echo of the gospel. Look, it doesn't matter who you are or where you've come from. Jesus is for you. He can make you clean. His cross is enough so that you can be forgiven. So there's 2 lessons from this chapter. God has a heart for the nations, and God has a plan to make us clean. Then third, God's salvation is free. Naaman's healed. What now? Verse 15. Then Naaman and his whole company went back to the man of God, stood before him and declared, "I know there's no God in the whole world except in Israel. Therefore, please accept a gift from your servant." Naaman acknowledges God, not just his existence, but his uniqueness. As he returns to Aram, he returns as a worshipper of the one true God. It's not just his skin that's been touched, it's his heart as well. But then he offers a gift. What would Elisha do? Verse 16. "But Elisha said, 'As the Lord lives, in whose presence I stand, I will not accept it.' Naaman urged him to accept it, but he refused." Elisha gives a strong and persistent no. Why? Why is it so important that Naaman does not give Elisha a gift? Because God's teaching a core Bible truth. Salvation is a free and undeserved gift from him, not something we have to pay for. Off Naaman goes. Elisha returns to the house, but his servant Gehazi has a plan. Verse 20. Gehazi, the attendant of Elisha the man of God, thought, "My master has let this Aramean Naaman off lightly, by not accepting from him what he brought. As the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him." Naaman's all too willing to part with a bit of silver and some expensive clothes, and Gehazi comes back with a smile on his face. He hides the goods, but Elisha knows. The result? The prophet confronts him and he receives judgment from God. Verse 27. "Therefore, Naaman's skin disease will cling to you and your descendants forever." So Gehazi went out from his presence diseased, resembling snow. Does that seem fair? In Dickens' book Oliver Twist, Oliver's in a workhouse and hungry. At mealtime, he goes back for seconds. "Please, sir, I want some more. The master raises his ladle and strikes him on the head. Our hearts go out to Oliver, but that's not the scene here. Gehazi's not hungry and being denied the food he needs to live. He's disobeying God's clear instruction. Naaman's been healed, and it's a gift from God, a gift of grace. Gehazi's actions are undermining that truth. Here too, Naaman's healing is a picture of salvation in Jesus. If we want forgiveness in Jesus, what do we need to pay? Answer: nothing. Isaiah 55 verse 1, "Come, everyone who is thirsty, come to the water, and you without silver, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without silver and without cost." Here, God issues an invitation to come to be saved, and there's no charge. We don't need a life of good works. We don't need a life of religious devotion. We don't need to present ourselves as people who have life sorted. We just need to come and receive. Jesus has paid the cost in full at the cross. There's nothing more that's needed. It doesn't matter who you are or where you've come from. You can come to Jesus and be saved. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to contribute anything to it. Just receive it as a free gift from him. So 3 important lessons. God has a heart for the nations. God has a plan to wash us clean. God's salvation is free. What about the life-changing application? There's an important person in this chapter that we haven't mentioned yet. We find her in verses 2 and 3. Aram had gone on raids and brought back from the land of Israel a young girl who served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his skin disease." In many ways, this young girl seems insignificant, but she plays a massive role in the story. She believes in God, she knows he can help, and she tells Naaman's wife. Without her, Naaman remains in Aram, and his skin remains covered by disease. This girl's an example to us. Today, God's real. He's come in the person of his Son, Jesus Christ. Jesus has dealt with sin and invites everyone to come to him to be forgiven and know God. That's good news. Do we know it for ourselves? Have we trusted Christ? And if we have, will we tell others about it? And note her example. How easy would it have been for this girl to stay silent because Naaman was a Gentile? Or because Naaman had taken her away from her family? No, with the love of Christ in her heart, she opens her mouth and shares the good news. We need to lift up our eyes and look around. Jesus is for everyone, and he can transform their lives. Are we ready to point to him?